September 17th, 2023. The Mediterranean Sea. A Russian warship detects an incoming threat on radar. Time to impact 90 minutes. The crew prepares countermeasures, confident they have time to respond. But here's what they don't understand: that missile isn't burning fuel like a rocket, it's breathing, pulling oxygen from the atmosphere, conserving propellant, extending its range far beyond what their intelligence predicted. And by the time they realize the threat isn't where their calculations said it should be, it's already too late. This is the Tomahawk cruise missile. And the technology that makes it terrifying isn't speed. It isn't stealth. It's something far simpler and far more dangerous. It doesn't carry the oxygen it needs to burn fuel. It takes it from the air, which means while ballistic missiles burn out in minutes, the Tomahawk can fly for hours, 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles, and in some variants, potentially much further. Because when you don't have to carry oxidizer, suddenly range isn't limited by what fits in the missile. It's limited only by how much fuel you can pack inside. Let me show you why air-breathing missiles changed naval warfare forever, and why adversaries have spent decades trying to counter a weapon that just won't run out of sky to cross. The fundamental difference starts with chemistry. Traditional ballistic missiles are rockets. They carry both fuel and oxidizer in separate tanks. The fuel is typically a solid propellant or liquid hydrocarbon. The oxidizer is a chemical compound that provides oxygen for combustion. Both components burn together in the rocket motor, creating thrust. But here's the problem: oxidizer is heavy. On most rockets, oxidizer accounts for roughly 70 to 80% of total propellant mass. That means for every pound of actual fuel, you're carrying 3 to 4 pounds of oxidizer just to make it burn. Air-breathing missiles solved this with one elegant engineering choice: don't carry the oxidizer, take it from the atmosphere. The Tomahawk uses a turbofan engine, identical in principle to a commercial jet engine. Air enters the intake, gets compressed, mixes with fuel from internal tanks, combusts, and exits as thrust. The oxygen comes from outside the missile, free, unlimited, always available as long as the missile flies within the atmosphere. The mass savings are staggering. A BGM-109 Tomahawk weighs approximately 3,500 pounds at launch. Of that, roughly 1,000 pounds is fuel. If it were a rocket carrying oxidizer, your fuel mass would drop to maybe 250 pounds, with the rest dedicated to oxidizer. Instead, that entire 1,000 pounds powers the turbofan, and the missile breathes atmospheric oxygen the entire flight. The result? Range that ballistic missiles cannot match. The Williams International F-107 turbofan engine produces 600 pounds of thrust. That doesn't sound like much compared to rocket motors generating tens of thousands of pounds, but rockets burn out in seconds or minutes. The Tomahawk's turbofan runs for over 2 hours. Low thrust over extended duration beats high thrust over short bursts when the mission is reaching distant targets. Tomahawk Block 4 variants have a published range exceeding 1,000 nautical miles. That's 1,150 statute miles. Unofficial estimates suggest certain mission profiles could extend that to 1,500 miles or more. Block V variants reportedly extend range even further through improved fuel efficiency and aerodynamics. Compare that to a ballistic missile like Russia's Caliber, which has a range of roughly 1,500 miles, but flies a ballistic arc, making it detectable and predictable. Tomahawk flies low, hugs terrain, and maneuvers unpredictably for its entire flight. This isn't theoretical. The United States Navy has fired over 2,300 Tomahawk missiles in combat since 1991. Operation Desert Storm, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Every conflict, the same result. Ships launch missiles from hundreds of miles away, safely beyond enemy air defenses, and hours later, targets explode without warning. The missiles don't run out of fuel. They don't fall short. They just keep flying until they find what they're programmed to destroy. April 7th, 2017. USS Ross and USS Porter launched 59 Tomahawk missiles at Shayrat Air Base in Syria. The ships were positioned in the eastern Mediterranean, roughly 500 miles from the target. The missiles flew low over water, threaded through Syrian airspace, and struck aircraft shelters, fuel storage, and ammunition depots. 58 of 59 hit their targets. The one that missed experienced a guidance malfunction, not fuel exhaustion. That's the advantage of air-breathing propulsion. Fuel isn't the limiting factor. Guidance, defenses, and targeting determine success. But getting to the target, that's solved. The same technology powers the LRASM, the long-range anti-ship missile designed to hunt enemy warships across vast ocean distances. LRASM uses a Williams International F-107 derivative, the same engine family as Tomahawk. Published range is classified, but estimates place it beyond 200 nautical miles, potentially much further depending on launch platform and flight profile. The missile doesn't just fly straight, it can loiter, search for targets, coordinate with other missiles, and execute complex attack patterns. All of that requires fuel, and because it's breathing atmospheric oxygen, the fuel it carries goes entirely toward extending time aloft and operational range. Here's where it gets strategically devastating. LRASM doesn't need external targeting once launched. It uses onboard sensors, passive radar detection, infrared imaging, and networking with other missiles to find and identify targets autonomously. A destroyer launches 6 LRASMs toward a suspected enemy task force 300 miles away. The missiles fly low, hugging the wave tops, invisible to radar until the final moments. They communicate with each other, sharing target data, dividing responsibilities. One missile identifies the priority target, a cruiser. The others select escorts. All 6 arrive simultaneously from different angles, overwhelming defenses. And they had fuel to spare because they didn't waste mass-carrying oxidizer. But air-breathing propulsion has limitations adversaries exploit. The engine requires air. That means the missile must fly within the atmosphere, typically at altitudes between 50 and 1,000 feet for cruise missiles. Flying low provides terrain masking and radar evasion, but limits speed. The Tomahawk cruises at roughly 550 miles per hour, fast enough to complicate interception, but slow compared to ballistic missiles traveling at Mach 5 or higher. Low altitude and subsonic speed make air-breathing missiles vulnerable to point defenses if detected early. A phalanx CIWS can engage and destroy a Tomahawk if it gets close enough. Russian Panzer systems can intercept cruise missiles. Chinese HQ-9 batteries are designed specifically to counter low-flying threats. The missile's advantage is stealth and surprise, not raw speed or altitude. China's response to the Tomahawk threat reveals how seriously adversaries take this technology. The People's Liberation Army Navy developed the YJ-18, an air-breathing anti-ship cruise missile with estimated range exceeding 300 miles. It uses a turbofan engine for the cruise phase, then separates a rocket-powered terminal stage that accelerates to Mach 3 for the final attack. This hybrid approach combines the range of air-breathing propulsion with the speed of rocket motors during the most vulnerable phase, penetration of terminal defenses. Russia fields the Kaliber cruise missile family, also using turbofan propulsion for extended range. Kaliber variants have been fired in combat from submarines, surface ships, and ground launchers against targets in Syria. The Russian Navy demonstrated the capability to strike land targets over 1,500 miles away using missiles launched from the Caspian Sea. That's air-breathing propulsion, enabling strategic reach from platforms operating far from hostile airspace. But the United States maintains a critical advantage: production scale and integration. Raytheon produces Tomahawk missiles in quantities adversaries cannot match. As of 2024, over 4,000 Tomahawks have been produced, with hundreds more on order. The Block 5 variant, featuring improved networking, multi-mission capability, and extended range, is in full production. Every Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, every Ticonderoga-class cruiser, every Virginia-class submarine, and every Los Angeles-class submarine can launch Tomahawks. That's over 80 surface ships and 50 submarines, each carrying between 12 and 154 missiles. the strategic implication is overwhelming strike capacity. In a conflict with China over Taiwan, the United States Navy could launch thousands of Tomahawks within hours, targeting air defenses, command centers, naval bases, and logistics hubs across the Chinese mainland. The missiles would approach from multiple directions, flying low over water, threading through terrain, arriving unpredictably. And because they're air breathing, they carry enough fuel to loiter, search for alternate targets if primaries are destroyed, and execute complex attack patterns that ballistic missiles cannot. Cost matters too. A Tomahawk Block 5 costs approximately $2 million. A ballistic missile with comparable range costs significantly more, often exceeding $5 million. The Tomahawk delivers strategic strike capability at a price point that allows mass procurement. And unlike ballistic missiles, Tomahawks can be recalled mid-flight, retargeted, or redirected based on updated intelligence. That flexibility comes from the extended flight time air-breathing propulsion provides. A rocket burns out in minutes. A Tomahawk flies for hours, constantly receiving new instructions. The missile's versatility extends beyond pure range. The Block 4 and Block 5 variants can strike land targets, to ships, and perform battle damage assessment. After striking a target, the missile can transmit imagery back to the launching platform, confirming the kill. If the target survived, another missile can be launched immediately with updated coordinates. That real-time feedback loop transforms the Tomahawk from a one-shot weapon into a persistent strike asset that adapts to battlefield conditions. Electronic warfare adds another layer of lethality. Tomahawks incorporate GPS, inertial navigation, and terrain contour matching. GPS can be jammed. TERCOM, terrain contour matching, compares onboard radar altimeter readings to preloaded terrain maps, allowing the missile to navigate without satellite guidance. Even in a GPS-denied environment, the Tomahawk finds its target by reading the landscape below, matching terrain features to its database, and adjusting course accordingly, and it has fuel to execute those corrections because it's not burning oxidizer. The future of air-breathing missiles is pushing even further. Hypersonic cruise missiles combine air-breathing scramjet engines with speeds exceeding Mach 5. The United States is developing the Hypersonic Air-Breathing Weapon Concept, HAWC, designed to reach speeds over Mach 5 while maintaining air-breathing efficiency. Scramjets, supersonic combustion ramjets, compress incoming air at hypersonic speeds, mix it with fuel, and combust without slowing the airflow. That allows sustained hypersonic flight without the massive oxidizer requirements of rocket motors. But even hypersonic air-breathing missiles face the same fundamental advantage that makes the Tomahawk lethal. They don't carry oxidizer. So every pound saved on oxygen is another pound of fuel, extending range, loitering time, and mission flexibility. The principle remains constant across subsonic cruise missiles and hypersonic scramjets. Use the atmosphere, don't fight it. Here's what makes air-breathing naval missiles truly revolutionary. They decouple strike range from platform proximity. A destroyer 1,000 miles from shore can hit targets deep inland. A submarine lurking in international waters can strike enemy ships 500 miles away. The platforms remain safe beyond the reach of most enemy weapons, while their missiles penetrate contested airspace using nothing but atmospheric oxygen and fuel efficiency. China cannot defend against this. Russia cannot defend against this. They can intercept individual missiles, destroy some before impact, but the sheer volume of Tomahawks the United States Navy can launch overwhelms any defense network, and every missile shot down costs more than the missile itself. China fires a $1 million interceptor at a $2 million Tomahawk. The United States launches another Tomahawk. The economics favor the attacker, and air-breathing propulsion keeps those economics sustainable. The silence around advanced variants is telling. Block 5 capabilities remain partially classified. Range estimates vary. Some analysts suggest Block 5 could exceed 2,000 miles under certain mission profiles. The Navy isn't confirming or denying. That uncertainty itself is a weapon. Adversaries must plan for worst-case scenarios, positioning defenses to cover vast areas, spreading resources thin, never certain where the tomahawks will strike or from how far away they'll be launched. Air-breathing missiles refuel themselves from ship reserves in the most literal sense possible. They take oxygen from the air, free fuel that rockets pay dearly to carry. That simple chemical efficiency revolutionized naval warfare, turning every destroyer into a mobile strike platform capable of hitting targets 1,000 miles away. And as long as there's air to breathe, the missiles keep flying. The Tomahawk doesn't scream toward its target at Mach 10. It doesn't climb into space and re-enter like a ballistic warhead. It just flies. Low, steady, patient, breathing air, burning fuel, closing distance. Hours pass. The target never sees it coming. And when it arrives, 1,000 pounds of high explosive end the conversation. That's not speed. That's inevitability. And inevitability powered by atmospheric oxygen is something no adversary has figured out how to stop.